Good day, Grade 7! Ako si Sir John, ang inyong makakasama sa pag-aaral natin ng Grade 7 Science. Tara, let's learn together! Ngayong araw, ating pag-aaralan ang pangalawang lesson para sa third quarter ng Science at yun ay ang motion graphs. Para sa ating most essential learning competency for Week 3, ito ay ang sumusunod. Create and interpret visual representation of the motion of objects such as tape charts and motion graphs. Ang lesson na ito ay galing sa learner's activity sheet na ginawa ng mga grade 7 science teachers ng Emilia Ambalada Poblete National High School. Mula sa ating last lesson, nag-describe tayo ng motion of an object in terms of distance or displacement, speed or velocity, and acceleration. Pero for week 3, you will learn to analyze or represent motion of objects using graphs. Pero ano nga bang ibig sabihin ng graphs? Graphs are very useful means of presenting information and making it easily understood. It demonstrates trend, pattern, and relationship between sets of data. And from your previous lesson, sa grade 7 English, graphs are used among non-linear texts. Meron tayong different types of graphs. You have pie chart or pie graph, bar graph, Venn diagram, line graph, pictograph, at iba pa. Pero sa ating lesson today, we will use the line graph, that is a graphical display of data that continuously changes over a specific amount or period of time. Ginagamit ito to display the comparison between two variables which are plotted on the horizontal o yung x-axis and vertical o yung sa y-axis of a grid. It uses lines to connect individual points, and those lines represent movement and may ascend or descend depending on the trend they show. Tulad ng nabanggit kanina, we can describe the motion of an object by using motion graphs. Here is an example. Analyze the movement of the ball in this diagram. The positions of the ball rolling are shown at equal intervals of time. So you have 0 meters, but after 5 seconds, nasa 5 meters na siya. Then after 10 seconds, nasa 10 meters na sa position. And lastly, after 15 seconds na naman, nasa 15 meters na siya. You can use this diagram to describe the position of the ball at any given time. Let us convert the data on table number 1 to graph by following the guide. First, plot the values in table number 1 as points on the graph na gagawin nyo mamaya. Take note that the time is plotted on the x-axis or the horizontal line, while the position is plotted on the y-axis or the vertical line. And lastly, draw a straight line, which is diagonal, through the points in the graph. Yung data na nasa table number 1 actually is galing sa movement of the ball kanina sa ating diagram, na ginawa lang natin into table to present the information or the data of the ball. Paano ba gumawa ng line graph? Una, ay gumawa tayo ng mga lines na tulad sa isang graphing paper na may mga patayo at pahigang lines tulad ng nasa screen. And then, maglalagay tayo ng label sa baba at sa kaliwa. After ilagay ang time at position sa x at y axis, maglalagay naman tayo ng mga numbers from 0 to 20 na gagamitin natin sa pagpa-plot ng points. Kaya magsimula tayong mag-plot ng points. Ilalagay nyo lang ang mga point kung saan magmi-meet ang mga given natin na data. Una ay 0 or sa point of origin. After ay 5, 5. 5 kay x, 5 kay y. Then 10, 10. 10 sa x at saka 10 sa y. Then 15 kay x-axis, 15 kay y-axis. And lastly, 20 kay x, 20 kay y. After, pagdugtungin lahat ng points using a straight line, kaya magmumukha na itong diagonal. Meron tayong iba't ibang klase ng motion graphs. Una ay ang distance time graph. It indicates how far an object has moved in relation to time. In this graph, the data of time is always plotted on the x-axis or bottom of the graph. And the further to the right on the axis, the longer the time it took for an object to travel. While the data for the distance is plotted on the x-axis or the side of the graph. And here, the higher the distance that is plotted on the graph, the farther the distance covered by the object. Now, let's interpret the graph that we have on the screen. First, a horizontal line tulad nung nasa may red means the object is not changing its position. It is not moving, thus it is at rest. Then another is, the steeper the graph, the faster the motion, tulad nung nasa green. And then a downward sloping line means the object is returning to the start, tulad naman nung nasa red sa bandang kanan na pababa. Second ay velocity time graph or speed time graph din. It shows how the speed of a moving object changes over time. Time is again plotted on the x-axis while speed or the velocity is plotted on the y-axis. By interpreting the graph given sa screen natin, take note of the following. The steeper the graph, the greater is the acceleration. And then a horizontal line means the object is moving at a constant speed. And lastly, a downward sloping line means that the object is slowing down, or we call it as deceleration. Let's try to answer this learning task. Analyze first the given graph and select the letter of the best answer from the choices given. First, John left his home and walked 3 blocks to his school, as shown in the graph. What is one possible interpretation of the section of the graph from point B to point C? Here are the choices. A. John arrived at school and stayed throughout the day. B. John waited before crossing a busy street. C. John returned home to get his mathematics homework. And letter D. John reached the top of a hill and began walking on the level ground. Which is the correct answer? For number 2, analyze the 4 different graphs given. Here is the situation. A bug travels up a tree from the ground over a 30-second interval. It travels fast at first and then slows down. It stops for 10 seconds, then proceeds slowly, speeding up as it goes. Which sketch or the graph best illustrates the bug's distance from the ground over the 30-second interval? Is it number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? For your learning task number 2, here is the situation. Every day, you walk from your house to your school. The distance of Emilia Ambalada Poblete National High School from your house is 4 meters. It takes you 2 minutes to reach the school. Now, make a distance time graph of your travel from your house to the school using the data in the table. So, balikan ng example kanina kung paano gumawa ng graph. But this time, ang gagamitin na data ay yung given for learning task number 2 para sa distance at saka sa time. Nakalagay dyan sa table, you have the distance which is in meters. So, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then for the time which is in seconds is 0, 30, 60, 90, and 120. Pwedeng gumamit ng graphing paper or kung wala, maging resourceful at madiskarte para makagawa ng paraan at maging mukhang graphing paper na maaaring gamit ang ruler at pencil. So, that ends up our lesson for today. I hope you learned something from this video. Salamat sa inyong panonood at huwag kalimutan mag-subscribe. Kita-kits tayo ulit sa susunod na video. Paalam!